All right, everybody, thanks for joining. This is Carol from the STS. This is the STS National Database Quality Improvement Series webinar. Today, we're just going to talk about beta blockers. I don't have anything planned for the ventilation project or decreasing vent times. We're waiting for that data to come in from Harvest 1, which closes on this Friday. So I'm just going to go over some things that have come up with the beta blocker release since January 1st. Show you where the data collection form again is. If you're not participating and you wanted to participate, we can help you get started with that. And then just some questions that have come in regarding the beta blocker. If we have time, and I'll probably do a little meeting poll here, but does everybody know where their reactions are at? If you wanted to share your reactions, just get ready because I'm going to do a poll using reactions. There you go. We have questions that were left over. Thank you, everybody. We have questions that were left over from the frailty webinar on February 7th, and we can either, after we finish up with the beta blocker thing, we could either end the call or we can go over the remaining questions if you all would like to do that. All right, so on the call with me, we have Melinda Offer and Emily Conrad from STS, and Melinda's our STS consultant. A couple updates. Again, we've talked about this last week. I think we've met like the last 3 weeks. Weekly, we're meeting, I guess. Community page executive summary was updated, and then Harvest 1 closes on Friday. Make sure you get your data in and it's good to go. If you submit your data on Friday and you're doing trying to clean it up and get everything done on Friday, you risk the chance of the uploader being slow because a lot of people, although it's getting better, a lot of people tend to wait till the last minute, and for whatever reason, it might be your work schedule or things like that, or folks are not able to get to it until the last day. But just be patient if you do wait until the last day. You're gonna have slower uploader times, and we just want to make sure that you have the support that you need. The support is here from on business hours. I think it's 9 until 5 Eastern time where we have live support available. Otherwise, it won't be answered until Monday. So please make sure that if Friday is your absolute last day to get it in, and that's the only option you have, just make sure you do it early on in the day to help avoid any issues and being without support. Okay. And February 21st is today. We're just talking about beta blockers. Harvest 1 closes on the 23rd on Friday. Harvest 1 opt-outs on Tuesday, ends on Tuesday. And then we have a monthly webinar on March 6th, which is our ACSD monthly webinar. And Melinda, what are you going to be talking about for your monthly webinar?
Well, I'm not exactly sure yet. I thought we were going to be talking about frailty, but
Okay.
I'll pull something together.
Okay. We can talk
Probably
about
some risk
frailty,
factors.
or we can wait until the April 1 once we go live.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
everybody.
whichever. We could do I could do risk factors. I could pull some slides together.
Okay. So we haven't heard about risk factors in a while.
Yeah, I think we're almost through risk factors. I'll have to see where we left off.
Do you wanna poll people using reactions to see if they
Yeah,
want risk
yeah.
factors or frailty? Because we can invite Dr. Weiler von Balmus back, and if he's available for the 6th, we can certainly have him here to do that. All right. Don't give me a thumbs up yet. I'm going to tell you what the reactions are going to be. We'll do thumbs up for frailty and heart for risk factors. Oh, Melinda. It's like,
Wow, that's
oh,
about
this is close.
it's so close.
All right. Well, let me reach out to Mort since we're going live with the frailty at April 1st. I'll reach out to him and see if he's available. If he is available, Melinda, we'll have him come on March 6th and we'll do risk factors April. Otherwise, we'll set up with risk factors.
Yep.
for
That
March.
sounds
Does that
good.
sound okay? All right, awesome. Thank you. Okay, there's the plan for that. Harvest again, harvest close is Friday. Okay, beta blockers. And here's our contact information, STSDB_help desk at sts.org for questions with uploaders, DQRs, missing variables, the dashboard report, password, and login. Here's my email, stcrone@sts.org if you need to reach out to me. And I'm gonna pull over.
Carol, some people are asking that perhaps you could make the screen larger. They're having a hard time seeing it.
It's full on my screen.
The slides, I think.
Yeah, it's full on my screen.
Yeah, it's not here. It's like half the screen as
Okay,
you
I know what it
slide.
is. You know what it is? It's that
Yeah,
Zoom put
that
in a new thing. Yeah, hold on. And I may have selected the wrong one. Mhm. Let me see. Is this any better?
perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. Zoom put in a new function to where you can see, good, thank you. Where you can see the speaker and the slides, and for some reason it defaulted to that, even though I thought I didn't select it, but must have been user error. Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Melinda.
Welcome. Looks,
Can you still see this?
yeah, I can see it. Mhm.
Okay. So we're gonna go over to the beta blocker information here. Under the research and data for data managers. On the left-hand side, I will select adult cardiac surgery database. It should automatically scroll. Sometimes it doesn't automatically scroll, so you have to click it again and then it'll go. But that's where it'll automatically scroll. And then access data collection resources. You do need to log in. It's a free account to set up. Most of you probably already have that. It is not the same as your IQVIA login. It's totally different. It's for the STS.org website. So under adult cardiac surgery database, the beta blockers are here under version 4.20. We have the training manual that's updated with the information as of January. The January training manual was the first one updated with beta blocker information. Melinda's also kept that information in for February and added a few clarifications. Sorry about that. And then under the data collection forms, we have the annotated data collection form. We have the Word data collection form. The Word form you can manipulate. You can copy and paste pretty good out of that, or do whatever you need to. It also will allow you to print the it'll allow you to print the annotated version of this form, which includes the short names and sequence numbers in that little red font. The link to the REDCap beta blocker form is here. I just found out that if we make any changes to the beta blocker REDCap form, substantial changes, that a new link would need to be used from REDCap. With that in mind, we're going to try really hard to keep the form the same. And if anything changes with that, we'll let sites know. But it's okay to save this to your desktop. If anything changes and it requires a new link, we'll contact sites usually via email or on our upcoming webinar. And we'll post a new
Hey,
link there.
Carol, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but it seems like there's some people that are still just seeing half the screen. And I don't know if this is still occurring because when I look at the times here, um, maybe we just do a little poll to see if people are still seeing half the screen or
All
something. If
right.
you can
If
see.
you're still seeing half the screen, send the laughing, crying face. Yep. All
Oh,
right.
geez.
Let me see if I can fix it. I'm gonna stop sharing. A lot of laughing, crying faces. Sorry, everybody. But
Sorry, guys.
let's see here.
Okay, let's see.
I'm gonna do screen one. I don't know why they make it so difficult, why they have to change things, but things are going good.
No. The other day I opened my my Microsoft Edge and the whole thing looked different. I was like, what the heck? Just one,
I
I
know,
like,
it's so, hold on, hold on.
all right, trying to,
It says this is the one I want. Let me see. Is it still the same?
I think maybe that's changed. Let's do another poll.
Laughing, crying face emoji if you're still getting half a screen. Okay. Oh, we got one laughing face emoji.
Couple,
I don't
not nearly as
understand.
many. I don't either.
All right. Well, I really apologize if you see only half a screen. Let me see if I can. And is there a way to also enlarge it on your side to zoom in on the other side?
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if they could do it on their side to make it bigger.
I think if you do Control plus on Windows HP, you can make it bigger. And if you do the boxes with the four loop things on a Mac with the plus, you can make it bigger.
Leanne says she's on the attendee side. She can see a full screen, so
Okay, thanks, Leanne Jones.
I think we
All
might
right.
have fixed it.
Okay. So under version 4.20, we have, like I said, the beta blocker link here. This is going to take you to the Red Cat form. We do have vendors, and I'm not sure who, because not all, they didn't have to get certified through the STS. We highly recommended it that they got certified, but it was not required. So there were vendors out there that built the Red Cat form, did not get certified through STS, which is totally fine. And so it is available to their users, or they're making it available to their users. So that has happened with a couple of the vendors, and I don't know who they are, so. And it was totally voluntary on the vendor part to do that for their customers. We did not require it, and if your vendor software built this data collection form in, then you can enter it directly into your vendor software. IQVIA did not build this form in, so for direct data entry users, you'll need to use the beta blocker data collection link through RedCap. And for those sites who are participating in this project and their vendor did not build out the form or hasn't made it available to them yet, you'll still collect this under the beta blocker data collection link. This is for isolated cabbages, first time isolated cabbages. So no redo procedures, and isolated cabbages only. Now remember, isolated cabbages include epicardial mazes in that group. So cardiac coronary artery bypass with or without epicardial mazes. Intracardiac mazes remove the case from the isolated cabbage group. So you don't need to include those in this. It is completely voluntary, and we ask that if sites are participating, are able to participate in this, that they are consistent and submit all of their isolated cabbage cases. It will run from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. So for the whole year. And the surgeon leadership will look at the data about the July after harvest 2 closes to look at about 6 months of data. So in August, September, they'll be looking at the data for the first time. I think that covers the basics on it. So when you click on that RedCap link, you're brought to this form. The first 4 questions: participant ID, patient ID, record ID, date of surgery. For the sites who have a vendor that built this form out, you will not see these first 3. You probably will not see any of these 4 fields because they're already collected in your data collection form. So the vendor is able to pull those over for this supplement form. Once you get past these, remember the patient ID and record ID are numbers generated by your vendor if you have a vendor, or they're numbers generated by IQVIA. I don't believe it's the same as the IQVIA ID. It's a STS specific patient ID or record ID. And they'll start with a V. And that's the number you enter, and they should be different, but I think sometimes IQVIA might use the same numbers for for the first time a patient's entered in the first record ID for that patient ID. And then date of surgery. Once you answer the question, you go over to the preoperative beta blocker section and go from here and answering the questions. And I'll show you, might be better to see this when it's all written out on the data collection form instead of going screen by screen. So I'm just going to open up this annotated data collection form. This is in PDF, and it has the short names and sequence numbers on it. I think it's, oh, it did open. And I'll make this will open small, so I'll make this bigger. Okay. So the first four demographic fields are administrative fields. And we did a little color coding on this data collection form to help you identify what fields are with the specific time frame. These first blue fields, I'm going to scroll out here. The first lighter blue fields, these are for your first home beta blocker. The second darker blue fields are for your second home beta blocker. The yellow fields are going to be for your hospital beta blockers. The first set is for hospital arrival up to 24 hours prior to skin incision time. So that would be when a patient had surgery at 7 o'clock this morning, it would be the time from arrival up to 7 a.m. yesterday morning. So the 24 hours, not including the 24 hours prior, directly before skin incision time, that's removed from this time frame. And then the 24 hours within preceding skin incision start time, that's the darker, these orange colored boxes. The darker orange is the second beta blocker. Lighter orange was first beta blocker. Darker orange is second beta blocker. Third beta blocker, fourth beta blocker, if patients receive that. And then we get into the post-operative beta blocker section, which is this darker blue again. And then we just ask some questions about post-op AFib and amiodarone. So the questions are, it looks like a lot of questions, but it's actually pretty redundant, and you hopefully don't have to fill out all of this form on most of your patients. Hopefully, if you do have to fill out the whole form on anybody, it's just a couple cases throughout the year, because we don't anticipate folks to be on 4 beta blockers 24 hours before going into the OR. Most patients just receive the 1 beta blocker, but we've had to make it available because it has happened in the past. So for the number of home beta blockers, 1, 2 are not on home beta blockers. And then the corresponding children fields will open: the name of the beta blocker, dose, route, and frequency.
Hey, Carol, can I add some comments about this? Just some
Yeah, go
things that
ahead.
come up. So when you get to that number of home beta blockers, the first question, if you can scroll back up, thank you. We had a really good question yesterday from Molly, and she had a patient that was on metoprolol, and the patient took 50 of the metoprolol in the morning and took 25 in the evening. So her question was, well, do I count this as 1 beta blocker since it's the same drug? And put the total dose as 75. And I thought that was an excellent question. So I sent it over to Dr. Karatai to ask him what he thought about that. And he said that in a situation where you have the same drug that's given, in different doses, perhaps for the patient's tolerance level or whatever reason it is, to capture that as 1 beta blocker and add the total dose. So for Molly's question, since her patient took 50 in the morning and 25 at night, she would say 1 home beta blocker, name it, it's metoprolol, and then she would put the total dose, which would be 75. And I think the reasoning behind that is because it was not a different beta blocker. It was the same drug. It was just divided into 2 doses, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you. That does make sense, Melinda. So will that be in the training manual?
I'll get it in there with the
Okay.
next update. The other
Mhm.
thing I wanted to mention about home beta blockers is a lot of times, and this is already in the training manual, but a lot of times there's a lot of hospitals that do not put the last dose. You know the patient's on 25 of metoprolol every day. And the patient comes in, you do the med recon, and it says taking as prescribed. Well, that doesn't really tell you, when was the last dose of that patient got.
Mhm.
So we have some specific language in the training manual about elective patients. So that um, the patient's on home metoprolol, the dose, the route, the frequency. But then when you get down to that section where it talks about what was the last time and all of that stuff, I
Yeah.
think that's further down. Then we got really clear instructions about elective patients. For example, if you don't know the time, they got it, but you don't know the time, it's an elective patient. Leave it blank. If you don't know,
So say the patient comes in at 6 o'clock, they were told to take their beta blocker before they come in for surgery.
mhm,
They take it at home, but they don't know exactly what time the patient took it at. How would you code that
right, yeah.
patient? Okay.
Well, you would say, so go to the within 24 hours. So
Yeah.
you'd say 1 dose. The patient got. We don't expect you to know all the doses that a home patient got of their beta blocker. So we've instructed you just to code 1 on elective patients. And then you're going to name that beta blocker. So if it's metoprolol, you choose that. And then the date and time. If you do not know the exact date and time, because a lot of times you don't on these med recons, we've instructed you to leave it blank. The route you should be able to answer. So I just wanted to point out that there are specific instructions in the training manual for elective patients, because I've got a lot of questions about that when we first rolled this out. I'm getting less and less questions now, but I did want to point out that we do have very specific instructions about those types of patients.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, that's really helpful. And just interrupt as stop me and interject as we're going through. I know most of the questions I think I saw come in were also about the home patient coming from home or the elective cases. Um, so the blue boxes are the home medications, and then we get into the hospital arrival up to 24 hours prior skin incision start time. Now, Melinda, for these patients, for the elective patients who are not in the hospital for this time frame, right? They're coming in the morning of surgery. For the patients who are not in the hospital at this time frame, how are these fields coded?
We would say not given, contraindicated, or unknown, because it doesn't apply to those patients that are coming in the morning of surgery. They're not
Okay.
here during that time.
So
And
then
that's
you would just, sorry.
you would just code the not given, contraindicated, unknown, and then all those things would blank out below it.
Okay, great. For patients who are in the hospital, then you would code for patients who are in the hospital greater than the 24 hours preceding the skin incision start time, then you would code this section to represent what they've received in the hospital. And then when you get within the 24 hours preceding skin incision start time, you would code this section. Now, I do have a question for you, Melinda. Say that patient, you filled out the first section here for the home beta blocker. Patient got something in the morning at 6 o'clock. They're coming in for surgery. Surgery scheduled for whenever. It's scheduled for 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11:30. how do you code, and they didn't receive another beta blocker, they just got the one that was their home dose in the morning time. They were instructed to take that before coming in. How do you code the orange dose, which is asking about the 24 hours, within 24 hours
You would just,
proceeding?
you basically code the home dose again that
Okay.
you verified that they've taken within 24 hours. So you would say one dose, choose the drug, date and time if you know it. If you know it for sure, because a lot of times you don't, even though I think that's bad. I think you should know it, but sometimes you don't. And then the route, and then you say, yes, this is the only dose. This patient only got one dose.
Yep. And that you're just verifying. This is, of course, a double question because we know you coded one up above, but we're just having you verify it there. Okay, and now let's say that that same patient, they had, were given a shot of esmolol in the OR.
Prior to skin incision.
Just
right?
prior to skin incision. So we're going to code that too as the second dose given. We're not just looking for oral medications. The time frame is skin incision start time. So you have to look at any beta blockers given up to this time for
Right.
holding.
Yeah. So if they got a home beta blocker, if they're on a beta blocker at home, you verified they took that. You'd fill out that as dose one. And then if anesthesia gives another whiff of beta blocker prior to skin incision or another dose is given, you would code that as the second dose given within the 24 hours preceding skin incision time.
Okay, thanks. And then third and fourth beta blocker given within 24 hours, you would code that. Now let me ask you this, Melinda. If a patient is on an IV drip and
Yep.
the drip, right, we're going to code that, say we code that as the first beta blocker given within 24 hours, or say it spans, right? Say they're on it the day before, it continues into the time going up to surgery. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, the patient's heart rate got too low, so they shut it off. And then at 5 o'clock, when the patient woke up, the heart rate got elevated again, so they had to restart it. Are we coding that IV drip, the continuous IV drip, even though there's a time in between that the patient wasn't on it? It's one, or are we restarting it as another dose on this one? I'm asking you two hard questions.
Well, I'm trying to follow your question. So
Yeah.
we have specific instructions about a continuous IV drip in the training manual.
Okay.
But you're asking about stopping the drip and then restarting the drip. I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like.
Sorry, it was kind of all over the place, but yeah, you got it. So the patient's on a drip, they have to stop it because the heart rate gets too low, but they restart it right in the morning time.
We don't have anything, we don't have that addressed in the training manual.
Okay, maybe it doesn't.
That's something we need to ask. And I think
we can
that
add it to the list.
yeah, I think that we would need to ask that because, well, I think that would be unusual. I could see them turning a drip down or stopping it completely. But even if they stopped it completely, you would still count it as a dose within that 24 hours. I don't think you'd count it as two doses, but
okay.
I would need to ask. I need to ask Dr. Carrot about that.
Okay, well, thank you. I won't come up with any more what if scenarios.
I hell, I love what if.
What if? Post-op beta blocker. So this is the time from OR exit to discharge. So first beta blocker given from this time frame. Now, if that patient's on a drip coming out of the OR on a drip, Melinda, and the drip is going for some reason, how do you code that?
Okay, so you've got a patient that's coming out of the OR on a beta blocker drip. That's what you're asking me.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm assuming that that drip's going to continue. I think that I would code that as the first dose. I would code that as a continuous drip if it continues for sure, because you would want to note that the patient is receiving that beta blocker in the post-op time frame, because we don't have any way to capture the initiation of intra-op.
Right.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I see that now. So if they come out,
This is, I think, and I know exactly where you're going, because after I asked you that question, what popped up in my head is the case that was presented yesterday to the core group, where the patient was, the amio was started in the OR. So we had said to code the time the amio was started in the OR. And now I'm wondering if we just need to review that further.
well, I think the amiodarone's right, because we can
Okay.
document that. And we'll go over that in a minute, guys. I hope we're not confusing you too bad. But this one is different because if you look, it says the first dose of beta blocker given between OR exit time and discharge, and they want the date and time of that.
Okay.
So in my mind, it would be a beta blocker that started after OR exit time. So that drip wouldn't be captured in my mind.
Yeah, I could see it going either way on that one.
But that's we have to ask the doctors.
Okay. We can ask them. Yeah, I could see it going either way on it. So we can ask on that one. And then this one, I know we have an answer to because we discussed it yesterday. And I'm not trying to throw out questions that you don't know the answer to, Melinda. I'm just thinking of, these are things I'm thinking of as if I were collecting it, I could see that happening.
Yeah, we haven't had these questions yet. So these are good to bring up. Food for thought.
They're like, Carol, quit giving Melinda a hard time. I'm like, I promise I'm not giving Melinda a hard time on purpose.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. No, I like this. I like our conversations like this because it helps us think, and it might give those who haven't already started collecting this, they might have similar questions when they start collecting it. So. All right, post-op AFib, Melinda.
So post-op AFib, this is talking about AFib from OR exit time to discharge. So it's essentially, it's the same definition you're already coding in sequence 6945. So it's the same definition. So if you're coding post-op AFib in the regular form, then you would code it here. This is the same exact definition. And then you would just put the date of that, when that AFib started. Now, the amiodarone thing we were talking about, this was a question that came up on the core group yesterday, because when you get down to amiodarone, it talks about administered at any time during the hospital course. So this was amiodarone that was started in the OR. So for amiodarone that started in the OR, you would say yes, because it is during the hospital course. Okay, we have anytime you get amiodarone. So you would say yes, and then you would go down and enter the date and time that you started that amiodarone for the first dose and then the last dose. I did get a question about amiodarone a couple days ago where they just gave a bolus dose. They gave one dose of amiodarone.
Mm-hmm. In the OR or outside of the OR?
It was outside of the OR, but the question was, they only did one dose basically, and they stopped it. So the question was, so would the date and time of the first dose be the same as the date and time of the last dose? Mm-hmm. And in my mind, it is, because that's your first dose and that was your last dose. You didn't get any more doses.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. What if that bolus was given just in the OR? Would we still capture that?
We would, because this is any time during the hospital course.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Melinda.
Now we've
We do.
generated a lot of questions in our question box down there.
See, I knew we would. See, Melinda, I had a plan for today. You were all nervous. Just kidding.
You're making me more nervous as we go along.
I'm just kidding with you. Okay. Um, so there are a few questions in here about frailty, and we'll go through those too, if that's okay. And I don't know that we'll
Just
be able to get to the rest of the questions about frailty that came in the week before,
can
or
we do the
2 weeks
beta
ago.
blockers first? Can we just
Yeah,
scroll down
we
and
sure
let's do
can.
those first while we're talking about them?
Okay.
So it looks like Allah has the first one. If our
Yep, there we
vendor
go.
if our vendor adds all the beta blocker questions to their form, can we abstract right into that, or will we need to enter into REDCap?
Sure, I can take that one. If your vendor builds the form for you, you can start collecting within your vendor form. You do not need to re-enter your cases into your vendor form that were already abstracted into REDCap. And you do not need to double capture your cases that are going into your vendor into REDCap. So only one place, and you don't need to re-enter anything.
And Beth had a question. If a vendor gets certified or has the form, then does that form upload to REDCap by itself?
It does not upload to REDCap by itself. We are having the vendors download all of their beta blocker data and send it over to STS in a Excel spreadsheet, and then we're uploading it into REDCap ourselves. We're uploading it. We're combining it with the REDCap data.
Okay. And then Mary and Jackie both had some questions about isolated cabs. I can take this. So, this.
Want me to read it? So we have it
Oh
says
yeah.
Mary saying beta blocker REDCap. So does that equal for isolated cabbage plus epicardial maze plus left atrial appendage amputation? Yes or no, Melinda?
Yes. So we are doing this form on isolated cabs. So anything that codes out or is codes out as an analyzed cab, an isolated cab will be included in this form. So that's a cab with an epicardial maze. That's a cab with an atrial clip or a left atrial appendage. That's also a cab with anomalous coronary artery if they just do a cabbage for that. Those are the only three things, right, Carol?
I
Sure,
think
I
you
think
got it. Yeah, I think
I
you
got
got
it.
it. Does atrial clip remove it from isolated cabbage?
No. Nope.
Thank you. Good question, Jackie. All right, from Tracy, if we choose to participate in the beta blocker data collection, do we need to go back to January 1st cases, or can we start with where we are currently abstracting? What's your opinion on that, Melinda?
I think that they can start now, where they're at, me personally, because it's a voluntary project
Mhm.
and we certainly want people to participate in it. And if you're willing to participate in it, we'd have a good 9 months of data from you.
Yep.
That's my personal opinion.
And then I'll just add on to that. If you are able to go back, we would love it if you could go back, because that all the data will out and this project as soon as possible, so we can start collecting the data and come up with good recommendations. But if you don't have resources to do that, then just going forward, I totally agree with Melinda, and that would be very helpful. I always gotta, upsell our database. Hold on, this question skip down. For Melissa, what is the process for a center to confirm which records have been submitted, validated for accuracy, and use the data for our own internal purposes without direct access to the submitted data? Centers aren't able to do any of those steps. So Melissa, if you need access to your data, please reach out to me and we can help facilitate a download for your site. Beth. All right, Melinda, this is for you. By second, third, etc., do you mean a different drug or a second dose? And so I think we're going to talk up, that's about this within 24 hours. So
Well, no, that was the home beta blocker.
It could be either
So
one.
Yeah, it could be, but I think it's,
Let's address it for both of them.
let's address it for home first because I think that was the question that Molly sent in. And that's the
Okay.
question I sent over to the surgeons. So for the home beta blocker, it was a dose of metoprolol that was divided into two doses. It was the same drug, and the surgeon instructed me to instruct Molly to collect that as one drug and one dose and put the total dose in, and the frequency would be just once a day. Now, when we get to specific doses, because we have where we can give multiple doses,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we'd want to put each dose, even if it was the same drug. But that's just me thinking because in all the conversations that we had with the surgeons.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree.
So,
This 24-hour preceding skin incision start time, it's how many times that patient receives beta
yeah.
blocker, how many doses they receive, and the doses, the milligrams of the dose or the dose received for each of the times given.
Yeah, and I can put that in the training manual, or I could go back to Dr. Caratine and say, "Are you sure about this? What you really want to do?" But because it does bring up a good point. But I think a lot of times people may be on a beta blocker at home and they can't tolerate taking the whole dose at one time, so they split their doses. And it's and I think that when we wrote that part about the home beta blockers, we really wanted to indicate if they were on different types of beta blockers.
Yep, I agree with you on that. So if they're on two different drugs, they're taking low pressure and then they're taking maybe co-reg, and the metoprolol or low pressure, they break up over, they take it twice a day. The prescription might be for once a day, but they're taking it twice a day, just so doesn't impact them so severely when they take this medication. You would code that as one home beta blocker with the total daily dose, and maybe that's what we can clarify in
Yeah,
the
I'll
training
up that.
manual.
Yeah, yeah, because
And
I
then the
think
co-reg would be the second
mm-hmm,
drug.
because
Okay.
it's a different beta blocker. The surgeons were concerned if patients wanted to know if patients were on two different kinds of beta blockers at home. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we thought it would be unusual, but some patients are, so that's why we added a second beta blocker for home. So the intent there is if you've got different drugs. Okay.
And what are you coding? So, question, I think we answered that question. What for on that same idea, and there's two questions here, one from Roslyn and one from Shabby, regarding what do you code for the frequency? So if they are taking 50 in the morning, 25 at night, or 25 in the morning, 50 at night, are you coding it once daily? Put in the dose of the first home beta blocker is 75 and once daily.
Yeah, or you could do it twice daily if we're gonna go to what how they're actually taking that total dose of beta blocker. We
We'll
need to
clarify that for sure.
we need to reword some of these so that it's clear.
You all would not believe the conversations Melinda and I had with the surgeons in building this form, and how many of these conversations we had, all these questions, all these what if, thinking of everything that happens. And of course the one thing that we doesn't seem like we talked through all the way was the splitting up of doses.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just code it as other, I guess, that might work too. So we don't say the patient's taking 75 milligrams twice a day if they're only taking 70 milligrams total for the day. We'll figure it out and we'll put
Yeah,
something
I
in the
really
training
think
manual.
I think the way this is written, and because you look at the frequency of the home beta blocker, we've even got 3 times a day. So um, I think I'm going to update the training manual so you're going to pick different drugs. So if they're on the name of the first would be the first different type of medication, right? And then the dose would be the total dose that they're on. So if they're on metoprolol, what's the total dose they're taking per day? And then how often are they taking that? That seems to make more sense this way it's written. I mean, look,
Mhm.
3 times a day, twice a day, once a day. So I can get that all clarified in the training manual, especially the way Dr. Karatai answered my question, Molly's question the other day.
Yeah,
That's clearly the intent that he wanted to know if they were on 2 different medications.
okay,
Right?
that'll work.
Okay.
Thanks, Melinda. Okay, what if you know the date but not the time? Can you enter the date without a time? If not, just leave it blank.
It
Will it
won't
let
let you
me?
do that. It won't let you do that in the red cap. I already been through that question.
Oh, you have?
Um, yeah,
Let me
it
see if
won't
it'll
let you do
go.
it. Um, or at least that's what he told me. It wouldn't let him do it.
I think so. You can do.
I don't think you can delete the time.
Let me see if it works. No, nope,
No,
absolutely. You're right, Melinda.
won't
Of
let you
course
do
you're
it.
right. Imagine that. See,
I don't know.
either leave it blank or
You leave it blank. We've got
okay,
instructions on that.
okay.
Um,
Um, well, where'd that question go?
I'm glad we're having this. Now I can got a lot of things to update the training manual.
See, I knew it. Well, direct data entry users have, oh, that's a frailty question. We'll get to that in a second. When entering data into the REDCap form, is it possible to delete a form if it's a mistake or delete the form if need be? So if you have a mistake in the form and it's not related to one of the administrative fields, so you've entered in participant ID, record ID, patient ID, and surgery date correctly, but you made a mistake in the rest of the form, just re-enter the form with the same administrative information and the most recent form will be used in analysis. Now, if you made a mistake in one of these administrative fields, reach out to, you can reach out to me or STS DB Help Desk and we'll remove that form for you. But we need to verify your name and your participant ID to make sure you are listed for the site you're asking to remove the form for.
Yeah, and in the training manual, there's a link under the general information that talks about if you need it to be deleted, who to reach out to, and things like that. Mm.
Perhaps providing some scenarios of the beta blocker and completing the form with each scenario may be helpful. We could certainly work on that, Mary. Thank you for the suggestion.
Hey, maybe that's what we'll do for our next webinar. I
Yes,
don't
when
know.
I say we, I mean Melinda. Just kidding. Can you go over hospital arrival till 24 hours? Not sure how to fill this out.
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead,
Okay.
Melinda.
Okay. So when you're filling out this section, remember these are people that are in the hospital greater than 24 hours prior to surgery. If they're not in the hospital greater than 24 hours prior to the skin incision time, you're just going to put not given, contraindicated, unknown, and all this is going to blank out. So these are for patients that, for example, may be in the hospital, 2-3 days before surgery. So this particular section, we want the name of the first beta blocker given from hospital arrival. When we say arrival, we're talking about even if it's at a transferring facility that transfers to your facility. So if they're in another hospital, ER, they get a dose of, a rate, and these are routinely scheduled beta blockers. Okay, so that's another real important point to make here. So this is the first routinely scheduled beta blocker, not PRN beta blockers, unless that's all you have, okay? If the only thing they got within this time frame was a PRN beta blocker, you could put that in. But if they got a PRN beta blocker and then they were put on metoprolol, 25 milligrams 3 times a day, that's your first routinely scheduled, which is what you want to capture. So let's say the patient's in the hospital 2 days before surgery. They get an order for the beta blocker, 25 milligrams twice a day of metoprolol. So we check metoprolol, then we put the date and time of the first beta blocker given, and this is the routine beta blocker, okay, within this time frame. Hospital arrival up to 24 hours prior to skin incision. You put that date and time in, and then you put the route, and then you put the dose, and I think the frequency is the next, yes, and then you put the frequency. That's it.
Very good, Melinda. Thank you so much. Okay. Darlene's asking, for multiple doses within 24 hours prior to skin incision, does the order they are entered matter? For example, start with the dose closest to incision as dose 1 and work backwards versus entering in chronological order.
I would enter in chronological order.
I would too. So the first dose they receive within 24 hours. First beta blocker given within 24 hours, and the second beta blocker. Yeah, I agree. Sorry if I missed this, but the beta blocker form is voluntary for ISOCAB right now. Will it ever become mandatory? Good question, Bradley. The intent is not for this to become mandatory, but only run for a year. Now it may guide, we don't have an upgrade planned at this time, but it may guide variables that we need to add into a future upgrade. But for right now, we're just collecting this data for a year. It will go away, and then they'll analyze the data and make recommendations both for any changes to data collection and also recommendations for patient care. If a patient is in persistent AFib on OR entry and remains in an AFib, is this data useful? It will look like this is a new AFib since there is not a question asking about prior history. Melinda, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand exactly what she's asking. So the patient's in persistent AFib on OR entry, remains in AFib. So if that's the case, Stephanie, go down to the AFib question, Carol.
And I think we have to point out that we're collecting this other AFib information in the regular data collection form.
Yeah, I mean, so this post-op AFib question is what I assume you're talking about, Stephanie. If you're not, please raise your hand and talk to me. But the patient experienced AFib from OR exit time to discharge. This is the same data definition that is in the training manual right now for your post-op AFib event. So if your patient was in AFib on OR entry and had AFib post-op, you would not be coding that patient as AFib post-op. So you would answer this question as no, because it's the same data definition.
Oh, got it. Thank you, Melinda.
Okay.
The amnio stop time when you turn off the drip.
I think if you know when the drip is like, okay, so there's 2 kinds of amnio. And I guess I should have specified that when I told you about the question. So there's an amnio that runs over a specific period of time. And if you know the start time and the stop time, yes, please put that in. But there's also amnio that some people just give really quickly. And they just document the start time. And it's not like a continuous infusion. It's just like an IV drip that may, run over 15 or 20 minutes. and they don't put that stop time in. So if you've got a long drip of amiodarone, you know when it's discontinued, yes, put that date and time in. But if you just have a little short whiff of amiodarone, you know when it was administered, you have no idea when they stopped it because it was not like a continuous drip, then just you could put the same times in. I asked the person who asked me that question if they had trouble entering that in the red cap form, putting the same times, and they said they didn't have any problems. So
okay. And we just have to remember that when it goes to analysis. So Melanie is saying, do you think there will be a lot of errors in cases already entered in for the beta blocker project? Should there be consideration for the first month or two or practice and go from March 1st? So, we'll look at the data when it comes in. The analytics center will look at the data when it comes in. But I don't think there, hopefully there won't be too many errors in the data for the first 2 months. It's a good point though, Melanie, and our research center will take that into consideration when they review the data for accuracy. And they do a pretty good job of that. Joy is asking back to what start date?
Well, we started this project. When did we start this, Carol?
January 1st, 2024.
I was going to say, it's all running together now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then no, it's January 1st, 2024, and we'll run it through December 31st of this year. Do we know what, and remember, we get about 156,000 isolated cabbages a year. I think that's the number, right around there. Maybe it's more than that. So we have good numbers at the data. If there are errors in the data, we'll be able still have enough cases to use for analysis, but we hope that sites enter the data correctly. And if you need to review your cases that have been submitted, reach out to the STS DB help desk email. If I can find that, this email here, and we'll be able to provide you with a list. Make sure you include your PID. Do I know what vendors will add this? I don't know what vendors are adding it. Some have and some haven't. You can reach out to your vendor and ask them. It is voluntary for the vendor to do that for their customers. As I was resubmitting some records with updates to IQVIA for cleanup, I noticed that there were additional records that were replaced, but I didn't change anything on them. And that if you could reach out to the STS_help desk at sts.org, they'll be able to check into this for you. I'm not sure exactly what it says. They're going to probably need some screenshots. Stephanie found her answer. Wonderful. But to properly capture if the patient took the home beta blocker, wouldn't you want a time?
Well, yeah, Chris, we would like a time, but I think that we have some language in the training manual now for sequence 1030, which talks about the beta blocker within 24 hours that states, if there's clear documentation, if this is the only documentation you have, and it's been validated that the patient took the beta blocker with a sip of water, but you don't know what time it is, but they did it this morning. There's a lot of we had to leave that blank because we do have some language in sequence 1030 right now that allows people to code a beta blocker within 24 hours without having an exact time if you've got specific, clear documentation that the patient took it within 24 hours. You just don't know the time. So that's why that language is there. So if you're answering sequence 1030 in your data collection form, the periodic beta blocker within 24 hours as yes, then, and you're answering that as yes, but you don't have the time, but for sure the patient took it. Some other reason was documented that they took it this morning at home, but you don't know the time. Then in the beta blocker form, we've allowed for that exception. So you verified it, but you don't know the exact time. So that's why we have that note there for instances when that may happen, because I know that those things happen.
Great. Thank you, Melinda. So we're gonna end the call now, and I'm just gonna cover the frailty. I think I can probably cover all of the frailty questions quickly. And that Melinda and I are working on, Melinda mainly is working on the training manual. We have the data collection form pretty near finalized. It's being built into RedCap. I'm working on a memo to be sent out to the sites for information regarding the purpose of the project, or the rationale for the project, and you can share that with your surgeons. And as I said on the last call, we probably won't have all of this stuff posted or sent out until the beginning of March. Remember, this project starts April 1st with the mandatory date of January 1st, 2025. And
Well, so I'm not even sure we'll have it done by the 1st of March, Carol. We've still got.
No, I said mid-March. Did I say?
Oh, you
March
said 1st of March, and I was about to choke.
No, April 1st is the go live for the data capture, but mid-March is when we're expected, like we said on our last webinar, we said mid-March.
Yeah.
Did I accidentally say first of
You
March?
did say 1st of March, and I know that's not.
Did you have chest pain?
I did have chest pain. That's not realistically going to happen because we're still working with the surgeons on some things and finalizing the form, and like Carol said, even though it starts in April, it's not mandatory until January. So we've got some time to. You've got some time to get things in place.
Yeah, and we'll have the surgeon come back. We'll have Dr. Weiler von Balmus come back in March to give another presentation and to be here for questions. But I do hope I think we will have most of the training manual complete by then, because you've already done a really great job with it, Melissa.
Yeah, we've got to just get some final questions answered in the final form, and just, there's just a few things that we are still working on with the surgeons, and
yeah. And no, we had the mandatory date as January 2025. The go live date is April 1st, 2024, with the mandatory date January 1st, 2025.
Can I just say one thing about the amiodarone?
Yeah, Go ahead.
Yeah, amiodarone is not just for IV amiodarone, it's any amiodarone. So we were just talking about IV because we had some questions about that.
And you're welcome, Ella. And then there's one question here, Melinda, and then we'll have to end the call because I have to switch over to something else. Patient, do you want to have Michelle email you regarding?
Yeah, Michelle, email me the details of this so I don't stick my foot in my mouth, and so I know what's going on.
Good deal. All right. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. We're going to get going here. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Remember, harvest closes on Friday. Please get your data in and cleaned up. And anything else, Melinda? Think about?
No, I'm good. Good.
Okay.
Looks like.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I hope we didn't confuse anybody, and I'll work on getting these things we talked about updated in the training manual for March, which I'm gonna start working on before long. We have a lot of people that had their hands raised. I don't know if they're really raised or.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't get to them today.
Okay.
But all right. Well, have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.